will broadcast now.
All right. I think we are up and running and ready to go. I want to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to our July 16th regularly scheduled meeting of the Franklin City School Board. Thank you all for joining us tonight. First thing on the agenda, moving down to 2.3 is a motion to come out of closed session. Do we have a motion to come out of closed?
This is Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I move to come out of closed session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity. So we'll start with you, Mr. Holt.
Aye.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3. Aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up is certification of our closed session. Do we have a certification of our closed session? Do we have a certification of our closed session?
This is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays have the same opportunity, and we'll let you leave that off, Mr. Holt.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, I abstain.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up is motions from closed session. I believe we have a personnel agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to that personnel agenda?
I'm Marshall Williams, Ward 4, move to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Carrie Johnson, at large, I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays have the same opportunity. Mr. Holt?
Ward 1, Bob Holt, I abstain.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Moore has graciously again added a flag so that we can carry on and have that pledge. So if everyone present would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now on to 2.7, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
Bob Holt, Ward 1, I move that we approve the agenda as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Carrie Johnson, I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity. We'll start it off with you, Mr. Holt.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, I.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. Our agenda is approved. 2.8, roll call. Ms. Moore, would you lead that off for us, please?
Sure. Robert Holt,
Present.
Amy Phillips,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Hall Leonard,
Present.
Marshall Williams,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Shelton,
Present.
Carrie Johnson.
Present.
All right, all board members present and accounted for. Next up is citizens' time. Ms. Moore, did we have anyone submit anything for citizens' time?
No, ma'am.
All right, as a reminder to the public, we are more than happy to hear from you. And in the event that we are conducting our meeting by Zoom, please feel free to submit any items that you would like shared for closed session for citizens' time to Ms. Moore. That contact information is there. Also, you can email in. We will accept that. You will accept that, correct, Ms. Moore? Yes, we can. You can email in as well, and we will be happy to read that out for you during citizens' time, whether you call in or whether you email. So I want you to know that you do still have that opportunity. Moving along, up next is 3.1, small purchasing policy. We had a discussion about this at our meeting 2 weeks ago. Dr. Sterling brought this to us. As most of you may recall, back a few years ago, we lowered the threshold for small purchases down to $10,000. And given what we've been through here lately with this pandemic, that has necessitated some purchases that needed to be made that were in excess of that threshold, and has put us in a situation where we've had several consensus polls so that those purchases could be expedited pending our actual approval at a board meeting. So Dr. Sterling brought this to us at our last meeting, looking at consideration by the board to raise that limit. As I said, currently it's at 10,000. Dr. Sterling actually made the suggestion at the last meeting to raise it to 30. Previously, it was at, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sterling, it was at 60,000. Was that correct?
I provided, the aggravated sum not to exceed 80,000.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Madam Chairman, I've looked at this quite a bit, and two of us were on the board when this was lowered to 10,000, and there was a reason for that. I believe there's no longer a reason for that. I did talk to Southampton. Theirs is 50,000. Isle of Wight is 100,000 for the superintendent in paragraph 3. So I would make a motion that we raise the purchase order limit for the superintendent to 50,000.
I second the motion.
All right. So we have a motion to raise the purchasing limit for the superintendent to 50,000. And we have a second on that. Is there any discussion in regards to that? All right, hearing no discussion, we will move by ward. Before we do that, Dr. Sterling, I just want to reach out to you as that does impact you. Do you feel that gives you the necessary means to do what you need to do?
Yes, it does, beyond, and I appreciate the recommendation. I can't even talk right now, but thank you.
All right. Well, that being said, and we have a motion and a second, so point of order to the question. We will take a vote, moving by ward again, starting with Mr. Holt. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, next up, we have the consent agenda. Again, there's several items in the consent agenda, and for the public's benefit, I'll just go through each one of those items since we've had the opportunity to review them in board docs. First one is the Franklin High School fees for the upcoming 2020-2021 year. Those items are right there in front of us. It doesn't look like there's any changes to those that I'm seeing. Is there anything that stands out, Dr. Sterling, that we should be aware of?
No, these are the same. And remember, we are just approving them. However, if there's no band rentals or anything like that, then of course they will not be, passed on to the students if that's not what we're offering.
Okay. Next up is VSBA policy services. Each year we sign up for those services through VSBA. This is what they do is they maintain and monitor changes within legislation and law and how those impact our policies, and they provide us with updates to those. So this is for that policy agreement. It's just our annual renewal, which we go through every single year.
Yep.
Next up is asset disposal. We've got a few items within the division, vehicles that have outlived their usefulness to the division. They've given us lots of good years and miles, but unfortunately it has come time to put them to rest. So those items are listed in that. All of those, of course, values are will be scrapped or sold. Next up is purchase order 21-040, and I'm going to go ahead and we'll look at purchase order 21-041 right behind this. Both of these items, one to Dell and one to CMS, are for replacement of aging equipment, computer equipment that we have. One is for servers, and the other is for some interfaces and switches, power supplies, things of that nature.
All right.
I just had a question, Madam Chair, in reference to which, I'm looking at which fund. At the bottom on the purchase order, we usually have a check to designate. I'm looking.
For the two purchase orders?
Well, I'm looking at the first one, Dell.
Okay, for the Dell. Okay. Dr. Sterling, do you know which fund those are coming out of? Because of course, by the coding, I can't tell.
Right, it'll all be coming out of our local funds, our operations, because we all split it out to the technology department. However, all of this will be reimbursed through our E-rate grant.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions in regard to the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5.
Go ahead, Ms. Shelton.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5. I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor moving by ward signify by saying aye, and of course nays have the same opportunity. Mr. Holt, if you would lead us off.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, I.
And Amy Phillips Ward 2, I. That motion carries.
Excellent.
Next up is the division financial report. Dr. Sterling, I will turn it over to you for that.
Yes, thank you. At this time, we will have our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Ryder, provide us the division financial report. Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling. Good evening, board, principals, and all in attendance. I have labeled this financial report as preliminary, and it is the financial report for the entire fiscal year 2020 that ended June 30th, 2020. It is preliminary because always in July and August, we have bills that we have to push back. We have revenue that we have to push back. It's actually received in fiscal year 2021, but we have to push it back to the prior year. But I'm pretty confident that these adjustments will be immaterial to the overall statements that are going to be presented here. And just for everyone's information, the audit kickoff meeting is July 23rd. So, just to give everybody a little bit of a, what we went through to get these financial statements, when we passed this budget back in, I think, June of 2019, the total state funding we were expecting was at about $8,320,000. And then, in April, we thought it was going to drop to $7,320,000. And then in May, it was back up to $8,162,000. And then by June 30th, we were right back to almost where we started, $8,381,000. So, and the reason that is because the sales tax revenues that we thought were going to completely tank didn't. And the lottery proceeds that the state actually sent me an email saying you're not going to get any more. They actually sent $50,000 more. It was a surprise to me as it was to anybody. On the next chart, you can see, the blue line was my best estimate back in, at the height of the pandemic in March. And then, as the dollars started coming in February, and then, April, May, and June, I thought that it was just going to be a steady downward spiral, but it actually, wasn't that bad, actually. So, it's all good news. The sales tax came in, just about where we expected back in August of last year. So with the revenues, this is the, I'm not controlling that. Tammy, can you, there, so I could, okay, this is the Fund 9 and 10. This is the main statement that will be used when we go over this with the city after the audit is done of, how much money is rolled over or not. And the negative $286,000 there, the projection of June 30 column under the blue heading. So there we have the actual results at June 30th, and then my projection of what we need to accrue or some purchases that still are going to be pushed into the last year's about $38,000 worth. So I'm projecting now that we're going to end up at about $286,000 deficit. We were supposed to end up at $335,000 deficit, which is nothing more than using up the rollover. So we were about $48,000 short of using up the entire amount of the rollover, but maybe some bills will come in that will actually be pushed back into the prior year, and we'll hit, we'll be right back at the zero. But it was a really quite an effort between March, April, and May and June to get this thing, to have all this spending done, to get it down to the deficit that it is. You'll see here, and this was the problem. This is what gave rise to the problem, was that your instruction, salary, and benefits, that first line, were $1 million underspent. And so we had to, because of that, we knew that in January and February coming in, and that's why the other ones that you can actually write checks for, and that's why it's red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black, right down the line, because we just couldn't hire enough people fast enough in the last 5 months of the year to chew up these dollars. So now going into the new year, which I'll present in August, all those numbers that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen again, because we now have a whole staffing plan where everything's going to, pretty much come in on where it's supposed to be. So a challenging year, and I'm personally, delighted with the results. I'm just, and now this one here, this is amazing. If I may say so myself, we were supposed to be at 179,000 negative for the excess spending plan, and we were within $7,000. So this is exactly where we were supposed to be. It's amazing that we came that close. That's this. Oh, that's the cafeteria. Okay. And then the last one is just an aggregation of all the grants. That's got to be like probably 14 grants, and that's literally just a snapshot in time. $180,000 deficit. It's a deficit because that's our fiscal year. Almost all that money came in July. So you have all kinds of different various fiscal years of grants, but this is just our snapshot on our fiscal year. And so the overall, when you add up all those three up above, this is where we end up. It's really not, you can't really, read too much into this because, like, oh my gosh, $600,000. Yeah, we were supposed to be that. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, the revenues of 15 million, 9 didn't, that didn't materialize of the 17, but, neither did the expenses. So
Right.
That's where we're at. The next slide is, okay, so in August, I'll be presenting the the new year. I'll be actually presenting the first month of the new year. Maybe, some any kind of updates I have from the state. I've heard absolutely nothing about whether, they're going to have funding problems or not. So I've heard nothing. So we'll just keep going on with what they put out in their calculator. And then once the final fiscal year 2020 statements become final from the auditors, I'll probably present those in September or October. And that's the last slide. Okay, so did anybody have any questions?
This is Bob Holt, Ward 1, Mr. Ryder. First of all, thank you for this good information. Just for my clarification, since I wasn't here last year, the rollover that you mentioned of 300 and some thousand, I'm assuming that was like our surplus from last year. Rather than they giving it to us, they sort of gave us a credit for it. And we spent about 270,000. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they don't actually give it to us where I have to make a budget amendment. We're just supposed to spend into deficit equal to that amount. Now I'll let everyone know, I'll remind everyone, for fiscal year 21, Robert, we have to spend in about I think it's $258,000 deficit because they granted that rollover as well.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Just to make sure that I remind everybody that that's not a bad thing. When I start projecting June 30th, 2021, Dr. Sterling and I, we have to make sure that we hit that negative 258.
I think some people who don't understand what's going on look at that figure and think, oh, wow, they've overspent their budget again, and that's just not the case. So thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions for Mr. Ryder?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Okay.
Looking at the budget and getting ready for audit season, I remember last year the city asked to meet with us. Should we reach out to have another preliminary meeting that was conducted last year? I mean, I think that might be something that the board may want to look into and consider.
I agree. I think I remember last year we did have that conversation. If it is the will of the board, I would be more than willing to reach out to the city to see if they want to follow that same process again this time, how they would prefer to conduct that and when.
Remember, we met with the auditors, we met with both financial professionals, and then, the chair, we were all on the same page. And I think last year's audit went fairly smooth because they provided us deadlines. There was no guesswork. It was very transparent.
Yes, I agree. So that being said, what is the will of the board?
This is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I think it's an excellent idea that we follow the same procedure that we did last year. So would the recommended action be for a motion or just for, you just want a consensus? I'm asking.
Just consent. I think just
Okay.
consent is fine because it's not something that is a legal item and binding. So as long as we have consent, we're good to move forward.
Well, I think it's an excellent idea.
Agreed. Anyone else?
This is Carrie Johnson at large. I agree. I think it's something that we can do.
Bob Holt, I agree as well.
Marshall Williams,
Shelton
agree.
agrees as well.
All right. So we are all in agreement. Great. So I will reach out to City Council, and as I receive responses from City Council and from Amanda Jarrett, I will let the board know how that is progressing and where we will go moving forward in that process.
Excellent.
All right. Mr. Ryder, thank you so much for that presentation and update.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
And
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving along, next on our agenda, we move down to 6.1 under the superintendent's overview, which is the Franklin City Public Schools Recover, Redesign, and Restart with Survey Overview. As many of you know, and I will turn it over to Dr. Sterling in just a minute, we had a survey earlier this month that was released out to, actually 2 surveys that were released out, one to our families within the division, and the other to our staff members in the division. I do want to preface this by saying that given the circumstances that are facing us right now, I don't think that when we look at going back to school, I don't think that there is a perfect solution. There is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and I think we are all very aware of that. And not any one given solution is going to work for everyone. We know that we are all here for the education of our children in the community, and that is, of course, the forefront of why we do what we do. But we also take into consideration the safety of not just the students, but the families of those students as well, and our staff members. So keep that in mind as we move forward. I did want to preface the conversation as we roll out and get started into that with just saying that. So Dr. Sterling, I will turn that over to you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. This plan is something that I'm very excited to present. It was a culmination of ideas and collaboration from across our division as well as our community. Survey results that we've seen help shape this plan and its outcome. And even while we were putting the final touches on it, there were some areas that we went back and said, let's reconsider and let's look at. So what we have before you today are some recommendations to recover, redesign, and restart our 2021 school year. Our presentation focus and expected outcomes. By the end of this session, board members will be able to see Franklin City Public Schools at a glance, COVID-19 cases in Franklin, Virginia, review FCPS community and employee surveys, recommended reopening models correlated to phase 1, 2, 3, and beyond 3, operations, behavioral health supports, and we want to hear board recommendations, if any. Franklin City Public Schools community. To date, Franklin City Public Schools at a glance. We have 1,085 students, 3 schools, 1 elementary, middle, and high. Our students receive 100% free and reduced lunch. Our demographics are 81.3% African American, 15.4% Caucasian, 1% Hispanic, and 1% Asian. We also have 1.3% multiracial. March 13th, we all know it well. It was recorded the first positive COVID-19 case reported in Franklin, Virginia. Since that time, as of July 20th, Franklin City has a total of has been reported of 80 COVID cases identified, hospitalized 6, deaths are 3. And I also provided the links so our community as well as our board members can keep up with the statistics of what's happening in Franklin City. At this time, you heard that we did an extensive survey, and I would like to turn that over to Ms. Tammy Moore to present the results of our survey. The FCPS Recover, Redesign, and Restart Community Survey. Ms. Moore?
Yes, the survey questions here are listed. Board members, you were presented with that information at the last meeting. As our survey results, the survey was launched July 6th. We have a deadline and we will close out on July 24th. The results that are presented tonight are as of July 15th, so we're still collecting information. We have, as of yesterday, 263 that responded to the survey. 60 of those parents and community members advised that they would be willing to sit on a parent committee to discuss the reopening of Franklin City Public Schools. The demographic makeup of those respondents, 53% of them had students at SP Morton, 36% at JP King, 45% at Franklin High School. 29% of those who responded had children who received exceptional educational services, and 8% received ESL services. There was a question that said, would you allow your child to walk to school if living within 1 mile, if that became a requirement? 26% of those said yes, and 76% said no. 79% of the participants have children that do not have health restrictions that will restrict them from coming back to in-person classes. 43% of our respondents said that childcare is very important for them in the midst of during the business day. 10% is not important, and 28% of the respondents that question wasn't applicable. Parents, 76% of our parents have the ability to provide masks for their students for those in-person classes. 41% of the respondents advised that they're confident that they would send their children back to school for in-person classes. 68% said that they're confident with their child with the virtual only option. So taking classes online at home. 32% said no, and 79% of those that responded yes said that they do have the internet capability to make sure that they're able to connect for the virtual classes. The 53% of our respondents was confident with the hybrid of a mixture of the virtual online classes and in-person classes as well. And that completes the survey as of this moment.
Okay. Next, we will discuss the FCPS employee survey results. Ms. Moore, can you please continue?
Sure. All of our staff received the survey, 7 questions long that you were presented with at the last meeting. The survey launched the same time as the community survey on July 6th. The deadline to close out is July 24th. And as of yesterday, we had 94 participants. 60% of those advised that they're comfortable returning to their work site. 70% advised that they are willing to travel for work if it's required. 69%, of course, said they would prefer working from home if they had that option. 28% said that they needed special accommodation, whether it be daycare or a school opening, in order to come back to work. And the experience level using online platforms such as Google Classroom, Google Hangout, Zoom, 39% of the staff members that took the survey advised that they're very familiar. 5% said not so much, and we did not have anyone that said that they were not familiar at all with the online platform usage.
At this time, we will review the Team FCPS Phase overview. As you all know, we are in phases, and the governor is the one that gives us the order if we're in phase 1, 2, 3, or beyond phase 3. At this time, Virginia is in phase 3. Therefore, students will be able to participate in online learning or come into the school to receive direct instruction as well. In phase 3, all students pre-K through 12th grade will be allowed to return to school utilizing a staggered schedule. FCPS will provide all students with technology devices in grades 3 through 12. Social distancing measures will still be in place. Limit for large gatherings increased to 250. Face coverings are required when social distancing is not possible. Example, school buses, extracurricular, and within the school building, and limited extracurricular activities and athletics. This is where we are, board members, at this time. But as we discussed at the last meeting, we would like to go slow before we go fast. So what we would like to do is to present to you how we would like to re-enter the school with a combination of phase 2 and 3. You will notice that our presentation will take into consideration our most vulnerable learners. Our most vulnerable learners are those that have not been exposed for 2 to 3 years of formalized education, be it literacy or mathematics. You will see in the presentation that we want to make certain that these learners have equitable opportunities to be able to read, write, comprehend, critically think. So when we do move out into phase 3 and beyond, they are leveled, they are leveled with their peers that have had the same opportunities to learn. Current phase. During phase 3, FCPS parents will have the option to select one of the following models. Phase 3 learning instructional models. At this time, we would like to recommend a reopening virtual start, which we call a soft start, for September 2020. Phase 3, our responsibility is for children to receive a quality education that prepares them to be successful in their future academic and career choices. Therefore, we are recommending that our most vulnerable learners that have not had the opportunity to begin or master the foundational skills of literacy and mathematics be our primary focus to ensure equitable opportunities as they begin their educational careers. Students in grades pre-K through 3rd grade will have the option to attend school in person 4 days a week. Special needs students will also have the option to attend school in person 4 days a week. English learners will have the option to attend in person 4 days a week. FCPS size makes it possible to have a class size of 10-to-1 ratio. September 20th, phase 3, September 2020, phase 3 for all grades 4th through 12th will utilize a virtual platform. They will not be in the building. They will be 100% virtual. This excludes students with special needs and English learners. During this time, we want to make certain that we take time out to train our parents and onboard them properly so they are able to support their children with the technology and academic skills that will be required to have a successful virtual learning platform. Therefore, in the month of September, parent training will be provided in September 2020 over all instructional platforms. Student technology devices will be administered with student training as well and expectations. Parent registration will be conducted online and in person to select the instructional platforms their students will attend beginning October 2020. This will depend on guidance from the Governor's Office, Center for Disease Control, and the Virginia Department of Health, as well as VDOE. Phase 3, October 2020 and beyond. Students in grade 4 through 12 after their onboarding in September 2020 will be able to return to school on the recommended A-B schedule. They still will not be attending school daily. They will have a rotating schedule. Parents can select, though, to continue with the virtual learning platform if they desire. There is a caveat. If the Governor's Office, Virginia Department of Education, and health officials close schools, we will have the training and support that we've provided our parents, which not just will stop in September, but they will have extensive knowledge how to support their children virtually. We will be able to successfully transition every student to go with a virtual platform. At this time, as we move, this is the makeup of what it will look like before and after October 2020. And I'm going to relinquish my floor to the principals so they can review their recovery, redesign, and restart models that we are all recommending for 2021. And at this time, I would like Mr. Dexter Warren to present for SP Morton Elementary School.
Good evening, school board, Dr. Sterling, our wonderful city, and everyone that's watching at this moment. Today, I come to you presenting the SP Morton, Samuel P. Morton plan, but all the credit goes to the leadership team at SP Morton. They did a great job with this. So starting off with option 1, in-person instruction, virtual learning, Bright Start. So we're planning on having a Bright Start team coming in 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Students will receive a full day of instruction, and students will also receive breakfast and lunch for the whole day. Kindergarten through 3rd grade, instruction for 4 days a week. We're looking at making a schedule for an AM and PM instructional schedule. Students will also receive breakfast and lunch, or both. Exceptional education, and we have to put those students in for special education students. And I'm not going to read it verbatim, but it's going to be an IEP team decision. We want those students to come to school Monday through Thursday, and also our self-contained students, because they're the ones that we're most targeting because of the data. For 4th and 5th grade, possible October 2020 start for 4th and 5th grade on an A-B schedule. So you will have students, if they're on an A schedule, they will come on Monday and Wednesdays in the building. On Tuesday and Thursday, they will come to school virtually through home. And if they're on a B schedule, they will come to school on Tuesday and Thursday, and their virtual days will be on Monday and Wednesdays. Also, we're looking into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade having laptops going home, since they'll be doing a lot of virtual, same as modeling the middle school and high school. I know we do have to work with our IT department on that to push that out and get that started. And some of the online programs, not going to get into every one, but we have Jason Learning for Science, the ISL. We also have HMH and other programs that we're doing for students to do at home, or if they're at before and after care. If you can scroll down for me, please. Thank you. Option 2, if parents choose to opt out, and they have that right to, we also will have virtual learning for students. And if parents choose to opt out, keeping that child at home pre-K through 5, we will have a setup for instructional virtual learning platform 100%. We're working on a Canvas platform. Again, they will use some of the learning instructional programs that we have from Jason Learning, IXL, and HMH. And also the parents, again, as Dr. Sterling explained, that they will have professional development opportunities too. And I'm going to talk about the teacher preparation day. So you may only see Monday through Thursday, because on Friday, these are the days that the teacher have their plannings and also professional development. And also parents will have an opportunity to have virtual parent professional development. In addition, on Friday will be the days that custodial team will have a chance to do their deep cleaning. And last but not least, we do have school counselors. We were fortunate enough to add on another counselor, and some of the things that they would be doing is analyzing the surveys, collaborating with parents, and also dealing with the social emotional needs of students, because we do have some students that had social emotional, but now it may be a little bit more since we've been out since March. So we really want to hit the target of our students that are most in need. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Did anyone have any questions for me?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. All right, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you. That little mute thing came up. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Next, we'll have Mr. Parker from Principal for J.P. King Middle School. He will go over the recommendation for the instructional model.
Good evening. Good evening to our school board, Dr. Sterling, team, FCPS team, also the Franklin community team as well. It is an honor to present tonight. I'll go over option 1 for us, in-person instructional virtual learning. Our overview, our 6th grade students will attend school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on a morning and an afternoon schedule. Students in 7th and 8th grade will be divided into 2 groups, a group A and a group B. Grade 7 and 8 will also attend school Monday through Friday. Group A will attend on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, while Group B during the A week will attend on Tuesday and Thursday. And on the following week, the next week, which will be a Group B week, Group B will attend Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Group A will attend on Tuesdays and Thursdays of that week. Our self-contained students will attend school in 4 days out of the week. Also, our exceptional ed students and ELL students will have the option to attend every day. All of our students have assigned days when they will attend, and we will notify the parents and obviously the students on which days and which groups they are in. 7th and 8th grade students will rotate to their specials. We will run a regular schedule with our 7th and 8th grade students, where they will have their specials for art, PE, music, keyboard, and career exploration. Our grade 6 students that will attend school in person on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week. On Tuesday and Thursday, that's when they will have their virtual specials. Also, while they're home on Tuesday and Thursday, they will be working on Jason's Learning with math and science. They will be working with Achieve 3000, IXL, and other programs that we have at our school. All of our students will be administered and given laptops. We have one-to-one over at JPK, so we do have enough laptops for all of our students to take laptops home. Our after-school program, 21st Century, will also be available Monday through Thursday. Students that attend on their designated days, they will have the option to go to 21st Century after school. 21st Century will accommodate the academic and also the enrichment schedules for Group A and Group B. Our +1 program that has been working very well over the years with Ms. Lawrence and Ms. Geary, they will continue to, we will continue to have those programs in the evening as well for our 8th graders so they can achieve high school credits in health and PE 9 and Art 1 going into the high school. You can scroll down. Option 2, 100% virtual model. If parents choose to do 100% virtual, students will complete assignments, 100% online assignments. Again, I'll go back to say we are one-to-one. So our students have enough, we do have enough laptops for our students, or Chromebooks for our students to have one at home. Students will use technology to access lessons in Canvas, Jason's Learning, WHRO, IXL, and Achieve 3000. Weekly lessons will be uploaded by our teachers. The great thing about it now, we have time to pretty much plan instead of just being, we were thrown into the fire in March because nobody expected this, but our staff and administration, Central Office did a great job maneuvering through uncharted waters. And so we're familiar with this, but we always have room to grow. Students will be required to do their Zoom meetings. Teachers will have Zoom lessons during the week as well. Students' grades will be aligned on summative and formative assessments. And parent training courses, just like Mr. Warren said, we will train our parents. We will assist our parents in any way possible. We always do that through our parents as partners, but because of COVID, we will find new virtual ways to make sure that we train our parents as well. Again, I said laptops will be provided, or Chromebooks will be provided to our students, and virtual attendance is required. There will be a form of accountability. Parents will know that their students, when we have assigned times for them to work virtually, they need to do so, and as well as when they have to come to in-person, come to JP King in person, that they definitely need to attend. But at the same time, we're concerned, number one, about the safety of our parents, safety of our students, teachers, staff, and the whole community. That's our number one job, is safety first. And then once we are safe, then we'll do everything we can to make sure they get the best education possible. But safety is number one for Franklin City Public Schools. Thank you. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Thank you.
Great job.
Any questions for Mr. Parker? Mr. Parker, thank you very much for that presentation and highlighting the plan for JPK.
Next, we're going to move on to Mr. Phelps. Oh, sorry. Next, we'll move on to Mr. Phelps from the high school. Mr. Phelps, will you please present your plan, the plan?
Yes, ma'am. And good evening to Dr. Sterling, to the school board, to the Franklin City community. The first thing I want to do is thank our team here at Franklin High School who helped put together this plan. We had several planning sessions and a lot of communication through email, and I want to thank them. I know a lot of them out there watching tonight. So we have two options. We have a hybrid option, which is both in-person and virtual. And then we have an all 100% virtual option. Option one, which is the hybrid model, our core courses, which are English, math, science, and history, will be taught both in person and virtually 2 to 3 days per week, depending on if you're in the A group or the B group, how many days a week you get with that. Our non-core courses will be taught virtually only. And there's several reasons for that. One of the main ones being that greatly decreases the amount of students in our building at any one time and makes it so that we can focus on for our core courses, in-person learning. Students will be required to physically attend school for their core courses, and technology devices will be provided to students. Like JP King, we are a one-to-one school, thankfully. Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Sterling. All of our students have laptops. And that definitely saved the day in March, April, May, all through the summer, and will help us going forward. Virtual attendance is required for the non-core courses and on days that are not required to attend school for the core courses. So here's how our A-B model will work. If it is an A week, that means Group A will attend on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and Group B will attend on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And when I say attend, I mean physically come to Franklin High School. Group B will attend on Tuesdays and Thursdays if it's an A week, and then when it's a B week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So that's why the very first bullet says 2 to 3 days per week. Core courses, again, are face-to-face. Non-core courses will be virtual, and those assignments can be completed at home, which is what we prefer. But we have a way of working with our students who may not have transportation just to come for the core courses and may catch the bus first thing in the morning, and they'll work on their non-core courses in their homeroom classes. All of our homeroom teachers are our non-core teachers, so it works out where everyone has a place to go at all times. 143 is the maximum number of students that will be in the building at any given time, but in reality, we'll never reach 143 because of that option to because of the option for virtual learning for our non-core courses. What we're really focusing on is our 9th and 10th graders who need those core verified credits. Our juniors and seniors, a lot of them are taking courses that are very important, but they don't necessarily have to meet face-to-face. So a lot of our seniors, for example, may only come for English 12 or government. So we will hardly ever, if ever, actually have 143 students in the building, but that is the maximum number because that's our enrollment divided by 2. Students whose only method of transportation to school is the school bus, or students who arrive early for their core courses, or students whose ride home after their core courses is not on time, will report to their homeroom to complete virtual assignments for their non-core courses. We plan to run the early closing bell schedule, not because we're trying to make it an easy half day every day, but because we're trying to provide time in the afternoon for students to log on to their laptops every day and work on non-core courses and homework / blended learning assignments for their core courses. And it also gives our teachers a chance to plan for instruction, and it gives us a chance every day to clean the building thoroughly in preparation for the next day. Transition of classes will happen under strict social distancing guidelines. I gave some examples there of what I mean by social distancing. So that's how it will happen if this is approved for the AB model. If we can scroll to the next slide, it's very similar, almost identical to what Coach Parker presented for JP King, but option 2 is 100% virtual learning. In that case, all the classes would be taught online, but virtual attendance is required and assignments are required because we have to have grades in the grade book and we have to document attendance. So even though we would be teaching virtually in this option, attendance and completing your academic assignments would still be required. So those are our 2 options that we're presenting for Franklin High School. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. I just have a question about the options. Do the parents have a choice to choose which option, or?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, our counselors and our administration, if this is approved, will go to work to survey every parent, and they would choose option 1 or option 2, from my understanding from our meeting today with Dr. Sterling. Is that correct, Dr. Sterling?
Yes, that is correct. We will be launching teams from each of the schools to have personal meetings, because it's almost as if we have to re-enroll their child all over again. And we want to make certain that we have recorded the option that the parent is requesting that their child receives.
What kind of measures do we have in place that will reinforce the virtual attendance?
Okay, well, first of all, we would take attendance each day by seeing who logged in and who is engaged, not just logged in, but who is engaged in the assignments virtually. Those who do not log in would be marked absent, just like it would be if you were in the building and not present, you would be marked absent in Power School. And then as far as accountability, once a student reaches a certain number of absences, and we have that in our attendance plan, we would start sending home those attendance letters, following up with our truancy specialist. I'm trying to think of Mr. Lowe's official name, but our truancy coordinator, he would follow up, guidance would follow up, teachers would follow up, just like we do if a student misses too many days of school. We would do it the same way with virtual attendance.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Phelps, this isn't necessarily just for you. I'll direct this towards Dr. Sterling. So if the parent did opt for, or it was the student's virtual day, if they were having technical difficulties, we would already have instructions in place for the student and the parent as to, if you're having technical difficulties, this is who you need to call. You need to contact immediately so that we can help resolve any issues. That way, just in case it is a technical issue, for instance, let's say my internet at home is down, and it's my virtual day. That way they know that I'm trying to get my work done, but it's a technical issue. It's not that I'm just not logging in.
Yes, that's why the onboarding of the parents and the students is so important, to make sure that we run a number of trainings so they can understand, so they can receive the training, and they will receive a technical support training as well. So they don't have numbers, email addresses, people to contact first, second, and third. We'll have all of that training in September, so they will feel confident if something does happen.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Any other questions before Dr. Sterling moves forward?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Okay, Dr. Hall-Leonard, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I do like the plan, and I have the same question for all three schools. In the plan, the only thing for me, I do like the fact under exceptional education students that it is an IEP team decision. So the IEP team does drive that. I like that. However, is it possible, Dr. Sterling, and your team to incorporate what the school division will do with related services? I didn't see that mentioned. I saw IEP team decision, but we do have in the district students who are receiving the speech, the OT, PT. Of course, I'm gonna zone in there because, you know, that's my area, and testing as well. I didn't see where we incorporated those students who may have a student support or child study team meeting. I didn't see that in there. So I don't know if that's something additional. Talk to me about that, Dr. Sterling.
No, those procedures would continue, because you already know that they're governed by federal and state regulations. So we want to make certain that those still will continue. We did not address them in detail because you can't deviate away from that. So when you talk about the IEP team, the parent, of course, is going to be in there. If that IEP plan says that the student has, let's just say, speech services, then that speech pathologist that we do have within our division will be required to have, provide those services along with the proper social distancing and everything else that comes along with, working with the student one-on-one.
Okay, well, the other thing is when you and your team provided the virtual instruction plan, you did include, I believe that plan included the eligibility meetings, testing, what the school division would do. I guess what I'm asking is, let's say parents have questions. Wouldn't it be best practice to already have that written for the parents so that they know if they had questions, is what I'm asking?
Well, I think that would be an excellent recommendation to have a separate slide for that, or a separate form for that. So parents with special needs, because as you saw on the survey, we had a significant number of parents that did have children with special needs. So yes, at the end of this presentation, it does ask for recommendations from the board, but I have already listed that. Thank you, Dr. Hall-Leonard, and we will definitely put that in place. And I'll bring that back to the board at our next meeting.
Yes, I appreciate that, but the plan is excellent. So like I said, my question was the same for all three schools. My other question was, I like at the high school, the early bell schedule. I really like that because it gives the opportunity. I agree with your team that it gives the opportunity for planning, for instruction, and it also gives the custodians time for the deep cleaning. So my question is for the middle school, will the middle school ever incorporate an early bell schedule, or will that be something that's kind of ongoing in your planning that you may want to look at how it goes at the high school?
Right now, it is something that we're going to look at. We're going to run this schedule that we have first, but if we have to make any adjustments, absolutely we'll do that. But we are leaving time for custodial staff to come in between the transition from the AM and the PM group of students. And also we've hired extra personnel and our custodial staff to be able to stay in the evening up to 9 p.m. to do deep cleaning every day for those schools.
Okay, and the other thing was for SP Morton, excellent plan. Mr. Warren and your team, excellent plan. I didn't have any questions, but I just wanted to comment, to comment for all three, how the district is incorporating the professional development for parents. Thank you so much. Excellent plan.
All right. Thank you. And by the next meeting, Dr. Hall Leonard and board members, we will have a preliminary plan so you can review as well. So you will know exactly the trainings that our parents will be receiving, and we will be looking for any recommendations that you have as well.
Dr. Sterling, I've been really impressed with the way this has come about. It's well researched, it's well thought out. It's obvious that everyone has done a good job. I especially like and agree with Dr. Hall Leonard. Mr. Warren's plan at SP Morton takes into consideration the special needs of our students in K-3 and special ed. And that was my biggest concern, but I think he's addressed it very well. And this goes all the way back to March when the schools were closed. So good job for everyone, all three principals. And thank you, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you. All three principals and the teams did an amazing job. But like you see explicitly in our plan, we are looking at our most vulnerable learners and those that haven't had the opportunity to solidify academic concepts in literacy and mathematics. We do not want to go back to having to be mandated federally that no child is left behind. We want to make certain that we put our best foot forward to educate our children, even when we don't have guidance to do that. So I'm pleased to be able to present this because I'm very passionate about making certain that our pre-K babies, our first, our second, and our third can read when the pandemic is over, can do mathematical concepts when the pandemic is over, and be able to comprehend when this is all over. So I'm going to get off that and I'm going to move on. Ms. Moore, do not scroll up because I haven't done this yet.
Dr. Sterling, if you could pause for just a second, because I think I had heard either Ms. Williams or Dr. Shelton had a question.
Johnson had a question.
Johnson had a question. Okay.
Shelton has one too.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm guessing that when the parents decide on which option they're choosing, that they'll be making a commitment for a period of time that their student will be remaining in this option. And if that is the case, are you requiring that commitment to be a semester or for the whole year? And will they be communicated to them? Because I'm imagining you would want them to switch between the two options.
Thank you so much for that. We are still making certain that we put all the logistics in the plan, but because we're going to do that soft start of onboarding our parents while our students are still doing virtual learning and we move into full blown in October, after October, they cannot opt out. they will have to stay in whatever program that that parent selects for the semester only. I would never want to put a child in and then the parent mistakes and says, oh my gosh, I said I was going to do virtual in this November. Well, we will make certain that we support the child all the way into the end of the first semester, which is the beginning of February. And if the parent says, I really want my child to come back with an AB day, we will definitely transition that child back into the school for a hybrid model.
Okay, and the second question I had is for students who are in dual enrollment classes or on an early college track, will they be required to be on a specific option so that they're meeting whatever requirements they need to make for their college classes?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Mr. Phelps, can you please come in? This is your shining moment, Mr. Phelps. This is your shining moment. Can you please talk about that, how you're redesigning your early college, what that looks like, and please answer Board Member Johnson's question, because we do have a solid answer for her question.
Sure. Well, first of all, we have been hard at work on revamping our high school to offer more students the opportunity for dual enrollment courses. We currently have 48 of our students that are scheduled to take at least one dual enrollment course, and many of them are taking more than one. We do have to get some of them special permission from Camp Community College for different reasons. So it may not totally end up being 48, but we're going to be optimistic right now and say we have 48. And to answer,
we have 48, Mr. Phelps. We have 48.
So to answer Ms. Johnson's question and Dr. Sterling's asking me to talk about dual enrollment. Right now, because we have 3 teachers at Franklin High School instead of just 1, and we have some backups in the works, but we have 3 teachers that will be able to teach dual enrollment this fall and into the spring semester. We are actually we'll be able to offer both the hybrid and the virtual option because it'll be our teachers teaching the courses at Franklin High School. The only thing we have to do is follow Camp Community College's syllabus. So they would be able to do either one for history, science, and math. For English, we're a little bit more tied to the community college because we will be doing the online English 12 with students from Southampton High School. So we're a little bit more at the mercy of Paul D. Camp when those classes meet, and they would have to be online. Although the students could come to school and get assistance from our English teachers as facilitators to work through the modules, but those classes for English only will be taught by Camp Community College professors because that is the one area that we don't have our own dual enrollment teacher. But keep in mind, we've come from having 1 math teacher, Miss Britt, to now we have 3, Mr. Smith, Mr. Lilly, and Miss Britt, and we have a few in the works that are working to also be dual enrollment teachers.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Phelps, this is Dr. Holliner. We do have a goal. I believe Dr. Sterling mentioned that before. There was a goal to increase the number of students who would earn that certificate and or degree. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to hear those numbers, Dr. Holliner?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, we have between 5 and 10 students that are going for the associate's degree. If you remember in last year's graduating class, we had 1. Right. We're very proud of that student, but we only had 1. Now we're going between 5 and 10. And the reason I'm giving myself a little room is because even if they don't earn the associate's degree, they will still earn the 1-year certificate.
Okay.
And now we have students on the new passport track as well, which is a student from each discipline, a course from each discipline that's transferable to any 4-year college in the state of Virginia. So we have some students on the associate's degree track, some students on the 1-year certificate track, and some that are on the passport track, which is why we have so many requests out there to Paul D. Camp to override some of their policies and procedures, because some of our seniors can get the passport, but they're going to need to take a little bit more than what Camp Community College has allowed us to take as far as what they consider to be a full load to get that done. So we have 48 students that are scheduled to take the courses. And as soon as we get the word from Paul D. Camp, well, actually, we haven't even waited for them. They're already scheduled for the courses, and we're just waiting for the good news to come back.
Thank you. Excellent.
Exactly, but I think I'm going to sit up here and ring the bell again. Mr. Phelps currently has over 50% of his seniors that would have taken at least one dual enrollment course. So that is tremendous. All right. Moving forward, learning environment policies.
Dr. Sterling, I think Dr. Shelton still had a question.
Oh, thank you.
We saved the best one for last.
Sorry, Dr. Shelton.
I have a comment and two questions. Thank you, Dr. Sterling, for focusing on pre-K through third grade, because those are their foundational years. And if their foundation isn't solid, their building or life will not be able to stand. And reading is fundamental to all aspects of life. So thank you for that. Next question, I saw social emotional support for the elementary school. Do we have social emotional support for middle and high school?
Yes, we will have social emotional support for all three levels, elementary, middle, and high. And I'm going to go in a little deeper when we get down there.
Okay. And then the last one, since all of this is new, I'm not sure if we thought about any kind of measurements. I know some kids do excellent with the virtual platform and some kids do excellent with in-person. Do we have anything in place to determine if the child is better virtual and or in person?
No, at this time, that is a question. I'm glad you mentioned it, that we were going to propose to those parents and community members when we meet, but we will be looking at quarterly assessments, bi-weekly assessments, assessing grades, student work products. So that is in the formation phases, but I did document that, and I will be prepared to provide you with additional information at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Excellent question. Thank you.
Now I think you're ready to roll on, Dr. Sterling.
You see, I'm ready to move forward with this presentation. I was so nervous this whole week because we all worked so hard on it, but not to go point by point, but just the learning environment, policies, procedures, containment strategies. Even with the AB day, students will be scheduled in small class sizes to promote social distancing. As you heard earlier, our goal is 10 to 1 always. So with that AB schedule, it's always going to be 10 or less. If we go over, it won't be over 11 or 12 students, but I'm almost certain it will only be 10. Again, of course, furniture will be arranged appropriately. Traffic patterns will be labeled. Containment strategies and joint planning with the Virginia Health Department and other health officials to support making certain that our community continues to have the communication needed so we can continue school safely. Next. All right, next we'll hear from the FCPS Transportation Reopening Plan, and I'm going to yield the floor to Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling. This is the first time that we will be using a computerized routing software that we purchased last week. Melissa Vargas and I are training to use it, and it is going to help us create routes that, obviously we've never done before, A and B routes, picking up kids and dropping them off in the afternoon. So it's going to be very exciting. But I don't think there's any way we could do it without this new software that we are learning at a breakneck pace. One of the things inside the software is that it can send all kinds of information to the parents right from the software, what bus stop and what time they have to be there, and all kinds of alerts, and if they've changed buses or all kinds of stuff. So that's going to be really nice. And so one of the main restrictions we had to take into account was how many kids can you get on a bus? What is the COVID capacity of the bus? Not the capacity. The capacity is 64 kids, but you can't put 64 on it. So at 6 feet apart, a big old bus only holds 10 kids. At 3 feet apart with a mask, which is allowed by VDOE, you can fit 20 kids on a bus. So that's why we need this software to help us figure out how many routes and loops these things are going to have to take in the morning and in the afternoon. As one of the things, that's why we asked it in the survey. One of the factors here is, if you have a lot less capacity in your buses, well, maybe one thing is you don't have to transport as many kids because maybe some of them can walk to school where before they didn't. So that's why in the survey, 26% of the parents said they would be fine with their kids walking to school. So we have to identify those dots on our map, and then we just tell it, boom, create all of our routes for us. And so we really look forward to presenting that to the board when it's all done, because it is really nice.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Even whatever children do, there's new protocols. I mean, they have to wear face coverings. They can't, sit next to each other unless they're siblings. How you load the bus and how you egress the bus. And the bus driver or the bus driver aide or someone's going to have to take their temperatures before they can get on the bus. You don't want, if you don't want a sick kid in a big classroom, you sure don't want a sick kid on a bus. So we're going to have to take their temperatures before they get on the bus and figure out, the whole protocol of what you do when you find a kid with 102 fever. So we're on it.
So I want to, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Oh, and the last one here is we have these, misting or fog machines that you put all the cleaning solution in there, and you just, you just spray down the whole bus, in between routes or at the end of the day, certainly between the AM and the PM. Go back to the bus yard, wheel this thing up there, spray down your whole bus, and it helps sanitize the floor and the seats.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there if you don't mind. Ms. Phillips, is it okay?
That is fine. Does
Okay.
anyone have any questions in regards to transportation?
Before we go into questions, I just want to have a clarification, please.
Okay.
Pre-K through 3 special ed and English language learners will, at this time in the plan, before we even speak to parents, and I don't want any misinformation to get out there, at this time, all of our children, especially those attending every day, currently will have bus services. Okay, currently we'll have bus services. However, we will be documenting and surveying and having individual meetings with parents on those that will be driving their children because they don't want them on the bus. We'll be walking their children because they may stay a block or two and may not want them on the bus. And those that are younger, the pre-K again through 3, that we want to make certain that we have adequate bus transportation for them, because that's pretty much a non-negotiable for them to be walking anywhere because they're so young. Okay.
All right.
Any questions?
With those students that possibly walk to school, is there a buddy system in place? Or have you gotten that far yet?
Well, we have had the concept of the walking school bus, where we position faculty and we work with parents, along the lines, like let's just say SP Morton, they would be spread out along that street, like maybe to the cemetery where they're actually seeing the children come in from the Dorchester area or from the apartments close to Pretlow. So we just had the conversation. We haven't mapped out the routes yet of how a child could successfully walk to school in view. But again, we are having those conversations, but we have not mapped that out yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Along the same lines of transportation to school and walking, I know we have students that love to ride their bicycles. Do we have adequate space if we have students that rode bicycles to school for them to store their bike?
You board members are truly on it. Thank you so much. That is another part of our capital improvement plan, because once we survey parents, we are going to be asking, can they ride their bikes? And then we will have to install the bike ramps, which are not expensive at all, for them to be able to bring their bikes, lock their bikes up, and then we can gate them in, especially towards the back of SP Morton, for an example, to make certain that they are secure. So thank you for that. And I will definitely come back with the board, and I'll put that down. I know Ms. Moore is recording. We're going to put that down on our follow-up for the board. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions in regards to transportation? All right, I think we're ready to move on to meal distribution.
Thank you. Mr. Ryder?
Yes. So the meal distribution plan kind of works a little bit like we're doing now. It is a non-congregate setting, and even when the school and the children are in the school, it'll still be in a non-congregate setting. The kids will be in their classrooms, and so the meals will follow the same nutrition guidelines and patterns and all that stuff. Nothing changes there. That's the stuff we're still doing now. But what we'll be doing is for the kids that go to the school, your lunch periods are going to be all different at different times, and we will be delivering the meals to the rooms, to their classrooms. Then they'll be eating there, and then and so the cafeterias cannot be used because we can't have kids congregating there. And then for the students that are at home, distance learning, we have to figure out who are they, where are they, and we will be busing the meals just like we do now, either along a route of meal stops or bus stops. And so we have to figure that out, because we got to figure out who is and isn't going to be there. Right now, nobody's there. So we have our bus stops along the route. We deliver our meals here during the summer. But when the school year starts, a whole bunch of, those kids will be at school. And so then we got to figure out who isn't. And so we'll just be delivering the meals the same way that we're doing now. And our new software actually has a meal feeding routing option, which is amazing.
Out for home delivery.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. FCPS mitigation measures. FCPS mitigation measures, what we are putting in place is protective barriers and face coverings, ventilation, cleaning, health and hygiene, policy procedures, and containment strategies. I'm going to go over those. Protective barriers and face coverings. Plexiglass dividers are being provided for reception areas and other spaces, like other spaces where clear barriers are appropriate mitigation measures. Students and staff must wear face coverings or masks, with the exception of staff that have medical considerations. For personal comfort, fiscal responsibility, and environmental reasons, FCPS will request that students and staff provide their own coverings, masks. However, FCPS will have masks available. So we'll have the mask as well as the face shields. So they have the option of what, hold on just a second, Ms. Moore, of what makes them comfortable. FCPS will provide, again, face shields for any students or staff. FCPS, we do have the capability, as you all know, if we ever run out and get into a bind, we have the ability to make face masks with our 3D printing to augment financial costs. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Ventilation is something we also looked at. I met with the team today. Ventilation systems are managed and maintained by Franklin City Public Schools in response to COVID. Our FCPS maintenance is implementing the following. We're upgrading to MERV 14 filters to trap more particulates that could carry the virus. MERV minimum means minimum efficiency reporting value, a system used to evaluate the efficiency of air filters based on how effective it is at catching particles. And this is something that we're not currently using. It's a little bit more expensive, but as you know, there is no expense when it comes to our children and our employees and our families. So we're going to be implementing that. Cleaning. The cleaning solutions for FCPS systems has in all buildings will use hospital grade solutions that are registered with the EPA. These solutions are used to fight against SARS, CoV-S, and COVID-19. Each classroom will be stocked with microfiber softs and a spray bottle of disinfectant surface cleaners, and will be given instructions for attending to high touch areas such as light switches, doorknobs, and desktops. Screen and computer wipes, we're working with the technology department, will be provided to clean computers that may be shared and individual laptops as well. We also are buying additional foggers to sanitize charging carts and they will be ordered for each school. FCPS has invested in new disinfectant equipment, as you just saw, both foggers and sprayers to enable more rapid and comprehensive disinfectant of spaces. And new cleaning protocols and checklists will be developed with FCPS custodial staff, so you will know exactly the times our staff went in to clean the bathrooms, went in to clean classrooms, everything went into the cafeteria. We are developing those protocols of accountability as we speak. Next, health and hygiene. Each classroom will have hand sanitizer for each classroom. Touchless thermometers will be provided at all schools. CDC and VDH guidelines will be followed in conjunction with data-driven best practices for health screenings, quarantine. Of course, as you know, abundant signage. This is something that we don't have right now, but we're picking them out at this time. We will have abundant signage in central office and all of our schools to communicate and social distancing, hand washing, face covering, self-screening and self-quarantine, and also directions will be posted for students to either walk down the right side of the hallway only, come down the left side of the hallway only. So all of that will be mapped out and ready to go in August and September. So what does that mean for us financially? Our financial future as it becomes to COVID, we are really going to have to work collaboratively and prioritize what we feel is important. But right now for procurement and COVID, these are the areas that we really would like to consider. We have been able to successfully order and receive the following supplies: masks, face shields, gloves, cleaning solutions, disinfecting equipment, touchless thermometers, sanitizers. We're in the process of ordering our plexiglass dividers and computer and screen disinfectant wipes. So all of that's taken care of with backups. But as we move into recommendations, we need part-time certified nurses aides for temperature checks. This is for our A and B group, so we can support making certain that we're all safe when students walk through those doors. We're asking for 2 per school. So at this time, you don't have a budget, but during the next meeting, I will provide the school board with the budget on how much this all will cost and if we can actually afford it, especially using our funds from the COVID grant. Part-time bus aides to support our students, making certain that everybody is seated. There's no moving around and intermingling of students. We are also looking to look into having an executive director of virtual education and early college dual enrollment programs. As our virtual education platform begins to expand and our early college dual enrollment programs begin to expand, we're looking for people to just be dedicated to that area. As you see, as you've heard, Mr. Phelps has over 43 students alone this year that will be taking virtual education classes as well as dual enrollment. So we need someone to work with those virtual education platforms to provide training to our teachers, making certain that there's a level of accountability virtual that one of our board members just talked about, as well as making certain that we have over 50% of our juniors and seniors in dual enrollment programs earning an associate's or a certificate or 16 credit hours with their pathway. Communication and media relations coordinator, as you know, information changes by the minute. We need to make certain that we're working on it, but it is a job of 4 or 5 people that are doing 4 or 5 other jobs. So with communication, we need to revamp our website, make certain that our community, our board members, our staff, and our employees have up-to-date information by the minute, as well as media relations, making certain that we're communicating everything that we're doing with the Tidewater News, Virginia Pilot, Wavy TV 10, and any other communication outlets. Capital improvements and board members, these are just recommendations at this time. This is not that, you know, we have to have this tomorrow, but these are things that we've discussed as a team. Capital improvements, I think, are our highest priority before anything with personnel. Our highest priority is to look into getting an RFP to convert all water fountains in each school to bottle dispensers or cup dispensers. That's going to eliminate students being able to touch the water fountain spouts, put their face close to the spouts. We're trying to eliminate that and make certain that it's touchless. Convert all bathrooms to touchless sinks and toilets, not just put in new sinks and new toilets, but to actually revamp, demolish, whatever you want to call it, and rebuild every single bathroom to ensure that our students are touching, they are not touching surfaces like they are doing at this time. They have to touch everything at this time. Parent and family resources. Our FCPS family and parent resources, as you know, we've talked about the AB Day, but we have to take into consideration our employees that come on AB days and what is happening with their children. You know, Franklin is for family first, and we have to make certain that we take care of our family members as well. So what we are proposing as a recommendation is that FCPS childcare for all staff members. Employees that have children in grades K through 8th will be invited to participate in an employee FCPS day camp program. The program will support teachers that return to work and childcare may be a barrier. Franklin City Public Schools will hire program monitors to support the day camp program. This is a free service to employees. The program will have 2 sites. K through 5 location will be SP Morton, and 6th through 8th grade location will be at JP King. Also, we can use our assistants and program specialist teachers as well to support the program. Community service day camp providers for parents that during the AB days that are home virtually, that have to work, that may need childcare services. We are collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club, and they will offer, at this time, we're working on developing a day camp option for them at a reduced cost for students in grades K through 8th. We're working with the YMCA, and we had a great meeting today. They're working with our students. They will be focused on our pre-K students and K and 1st grade students, working with them on those days for a reduced cost. Also, we talked to Little Hands and area churches. These conversations are ongoing, but we want to make certain that if our children are at home, that they have the appropriate supervision needed for them to be successful. And this is an area that we're working very diligently to solidify before September. Any questions on that?
have one on the childcare for staff.
Mhm.
In regards to that, I know you're looking at those students that are in school. Are you including, say for instance, I'm an employee, but my child attends a different school system? Would they be included as well? Or are you looking at just the students that are enrolled in our division?
We're looking at those as well. That's why there would be like a day camp situation, because if their child is going, let's just say they're in Chesapeake and they're all virtual, well, that hinders her from the employee from coming to work if we go to an AB day. So we want to make certain that they're supported as well. So they get to drop their child off, have that day camp services, and then pick their child up while they go back home.
Great. Wanted to make
Trying
sure
to
and
eliminate
clarify that.
barriers.
Dr. Sterling,
Yeah.
I want to make sure for a point of clarity. So the teachers, even though the students have the option of the AB days, rotating schedules for all 3 schools, are teachers required, staff required to work 5 days a week? I'm asking.
It depends. It depends.
Okay.
At this, yes, ma'am. It depends on the schedule. Because there is an AB day, those days that they don't have students in front of them, they are still conducting virtual classes. So they will be working 5 days. And of course, we definitely consider our professional development day a work. So to answer your question, yes, ma'am, they will be working 5 days a week.
Okay, and so that 5 days a week doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in person. It may be that they're working virtually.
Absolutely,
remotely.
absolutely. If we have
Okay.
a full-blown virtual class, yes, ma'am, we definitely want to
Okay.
encourage that. They do not have to be present, but again, we will provide the board with a detailed schedule on those individuals who will be home, working from home.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anything that we can do to support our families and our employees to be safe.
Yes, I do like that. We want to make sure that the staff has that opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, next. Mental health services is extremely important, especially for our children. Mental health services will continue to be offered to all students. So all the providers that have worked with our students in the past will continue to work with our students. And we are going to be working with them to develop schedules for our students. So our students may, be able to have services in school. It may be in time slots as we develop this program. So you may have, Agape or therapeutic intervention, let's say, is one of our providers, and they're seeing students one by one, maybe in 45-minute intervals, and they will have a space in our building, one classroom where they come in, there'll be one student and one support person, and they will receive mental health services. This is something that we cannot afford to overlook. This has to be intentional in our program. So services may be conducted via virtual platform or in person with social distance guidelines strictly enforced. We have 6 counselors, again, and 3 nurses on staff that will make weekly contact with students that are medically fragile, receive mental health support, or have special needs. So we want to make certain we are having consistent and constant contact with those children, as well as all of our children, but we do have students that we make a priority. The parent engagement coordinator will continue to organize wellness checks for all of our families. Instructional materials, I think a board member mentioned this earlier, will be mailed home to support the continuity of learning, books, consumables, STEM kits, etc. We will continue to partner with social services to support families that have various needs. We will continue to partner with the Virginia Department of Health to support families with medical resources. And also we will continue to partner with the food bank to support families that have food insecurities. At this time, this concludes our recommendation for our reopening and restart plan. At this time, we would like, as we were going along, I have documented all board recommendations, but if you have any at this time, I'm
I have a
it
question.
back over. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now my question, and I've been trying to keep up with the Virginia Department of Education updates from the state superintendent. My question is whether or not the Recover, Redesign, and Restart plan would take the place of having to update the Franklin City Public Schools handbook, or is the Virginia Department of Education asking for school divisions to create a plan, school boards approve the plan, then submit the plan to the Virginia Department of Education, in addition to updating the Franklin City Public Schools handbook?
So to answer your question, no for the handbook, but for the plan, yes. And they want to really focus on the mitigation strategies on how we plan to keep children healthy. So that is a report after the board provides their recommendations and approve this plan that we'll go ahead on and compile to the VDOE. The board will receive the document before it's sent up for approval. And that's all that Dr. Lane is requesting at this time. But I do agree with you. We have not had time to sit down because of everything that's been going on, but there are some things in the handbook that has to be updated, especially when it comes to working in a virtual platform, and that will deal with policy. So we will be bringing that back to the board at a later date.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling. You excellent job, you and your team. Thank you.
You did a great job.
Excellent.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Sterling and her team?
Thank you all for your diligence.
Thank you. It's a team effort. Like we said, we've been working on this for quite some time.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling, and thank you. I know you've had many, many hands in on this, and there's been many, many conversations had to develop this. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the administrators. I want to thank the entire team, Franklin City Public Schools, that's had input on this. I know along the process, because all of us as board members have known this was coming, that we were going to have to develop a plan for each division. And I know we have each kind of had our eyes and ears on what was going on from the CDC down through VDOE, down to surrounding divisions. We've all been very aware of and very tuned into what was going on. And like I said before, I just want to reiterate for parents that we understand that there is no right or perfect scenario for returning to school. It's unprecedented. No one's ever been through this before on this magnitude. So this is uncharted territory. And as stated before, it's a balance between educating our children and maintaining not just the children's safety, but the safety of their families as well, and the safety of our staff and their families as well. You know, we understand that we have families where the child may be the only child in the household, but the child lives with their grandparent. Or there may be a child where there is a sibling that has health issues that may make them immunocompromised. We are very, very aware of those situations, and that's why we want to make sure that the opportunities that are offered fit with the student's need and the family's need. But that being said, I do want to stress back to the families that this is going to take cooperation from them as well. We're going to have to work hand in hand moving forward. And I think it's safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sterling, but if for those options that are virtual, we're not slacking off on the rigor any. There is still expectation. We want you still to be afforded, even if it is virtually, the best possible education that you can get. And we don't want to cut anything off for you if you do opt for virtual. We want you still to be getting the same education, the same quality of education that you would get if you were sitting in a classroom. So parents, I want you to understand we have the best interest of your children at heart, and we want to make sure that we have the best option available for your child to thrive and to stay healthy. Anyone else have anything, any questions, any comments, anything to add, any suggestions in regards to the proposed plan?
I just have a question for, this is Hollander. I have a question for Dr. Sterling. So the recommended action is for approval for the Recover, Redesign, and Restart plan. Dr. Sterling, would you like for the board to add to that motion with the recommendations of the school board? Because I heard you note that you've been writing or making notations of all the recommendations.
I would certainly appreciate that with the additional recommendations from the board. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I will entertain a motion in regards to the Recover, Redesign, and Restart plan.
This is Andrea Holland, Ward 3. I move to approve the Franklin City Public Schools Recover, Redesign, and Restart 2021 plan with recommendations, with the additional recommendations of the school board.
Bob Holt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Moving by ward, starting with Mr. Holt. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
This is Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Again, Dr. Sterling, thank you very much to your team and you for all of the time that you have put into this. I hope that our parents understand the intent with this, and that our parents step up and are willing to work hand in hand for the betterment of their children.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Moving along, next is business by school board members. Does anyone have anything to share with the board?
Yes, I do. Today we received the school board, we received an email in reference to our minutes. And so that's a little concerning for me. Don't want to get into personnel, but is it at this point that maybe we want to consider, and I know when we have talked about the various roles, some of our staff maybe have several roles. And is it something that maybe we can do to support the office of the board clerk so that we are able to receive the minutes timely? So I did just a little research to make sure. I went back to try to find the governance handbook, but then I found the policy. We already have a policy. So my recommendation tonight, and we also received an email from our chair in reference to some policies that the school board would discuss at the next meeting. So the policy, my recommendation is for policy BDDG to also be reviewed. And that policy addresses our school board minutes. At the bottom of that policy, it references Virginia Code Section 2.2-3701. And so we do want to take, as a school board, is my recommendation, is that we do take a look at it, because that code states that the boards, commissions, and councils, that we would have school board meeting minutes ready by a certain time and then approved so that the public is able to see our minutes. And so we would need our minutes from, I believe it's from June 4th, June 18th, and now July 2nd, and then from tonight. And so we just want to, to kind of look at that, I would say, as a board, to see if maybe how, Dr. Sterling, maybe how you could support or to move some things around to support the office of the board clerk, because she does an excellent job, but, to make sure that we're getting our minutes in.
Thank you, Dr. Holland, and I will do that.
Absolutely. Thank you for suggesting that, Dr. Hall Leonard.
Yes.
You're welcome.
And it's funny because you read my mind as well, because that was one of the things I had jotted down.
Okay.
Anything else that anyone wishes to share?
Well, not necessarily share. Okay, I don't want to cut you off. Not necessarily share. I just want to just commend your team. Dr. Sterling, you and your team, you all have been working very hard, and it is evident in this plan. The plan is, Mr. Holt mentioned it earlier this evening. The plan is well thought out, put together, and we can see the participants that are on here tonight, how your staff, you all are working. You're diligently working, and it is evident. And so we do want to commend you and your staff for the plan.
Thank you. They did an amazing job. They really
did. Yes, they did.
Excellent plan.
Ms. Johnson, did I hear you chime in?
You did. I was just going to say, I know that there have been times before we've approved several sets of minutes at a time. So, I mean, I understand that there has been a lot going on over the past couple of, months. So it wasn't something that I necessarily took as a concern. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, I kind of, when we say a concern, we do have to go back to the Virginia Code.
I understand.
So we're kind of mandated to do it in a timely fashion.
Right, I understand, but I also know that there have been other times where we have group sets of minutes together. So, I mean, I think if we were, to start getting into August and whatnot, then I could see that. But I know that with some of the turnover that we've had and with getting things straight in central office and with COVID and whatnot, I just wanted to express my opinion that I didn't necessarily see it as a concern, knowing that in the past, at least since I've been on the board, it's not uncommon for us to sometimes approve 2, 3, or 4 sets of minutes at a time. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. Well, I'd like to read. I'm reading from that code. It says draft minutes of meetings.
No, I'm familiar with the code.
Oh, okay.
It's been that way. I'm just saying it was that way before when we approved those sets of minutes at a time as well. So I was just stating that I didn't have a concern then, and I don't have a concern now. And that's all I wanted to state.
Okay. Well, I'd like to state for the record, I don't recall us going several meetings. We don't want to send a message that this school board has been going several meetings and not approving minutes. There have been times, I believe the board clerk may have sent us the minutes, and maybe they were not in draft form, but I don't recall as a school board member going several meetings, and we don't want to send that message to the public that we have been doing that.
And I understand where both of you are coming from, and we have had an instance in the past last year where we had several minutes at once to approve, and that was due to an oversight. But we went back and approved those minutes.
Yes, it was due to an oversight. Yes.
And that does happen from time to time, and I understand and agree. But we're not trying to hide anything from the public. There has been a lot going on in the division, and there have been a lot of people, not just one particular individual, but there's been a lot of people stretched in different capacities, given some turnover and given all of that COVID has thrown in. So I've not had a concern. I do know she is diligently working on those. There was one set that would have been available by tonight. However, given the nature of us having, this would be the 4th meeting, I know those will be available as she and I have had a discussion by our next meeting. So we will have those for us in 2 weeks.
And thank you for that. And I appreciate you saying that. And Ms. Johnson and Dr. Hall Leonard, This plan has been approved and I greatly appreciate it. And trust me, we all will have a lot more time freed up to make certain that we catch up. I understand the code and we want to make certain that we continue to be in compliance. So we'll have those minutes for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sterling, for noting that you understand the code.
Yes.
Thank you. I got it. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody else have anything to share for the board? Well, I am going to sound like a broken record because this is like deja vu, but I'm going to step up again and Dr. Hall Leonard, we're going to say this is going to be, we're not going to go into a third time as a charm. But thank you for stepping up this month and filling in for the Ward 3 spot and continuing to serve in that capacity. I know your term ended the last of June, but given that there was no appointed person for your ward, you have graciously stepped up and continued to serve on behalf of the citizens and students within your ward. And thank you so much for that. And thank you for your dedication and service to the school board for the past years as well. So I feel like I just said it, but I'm still going to say it again. So thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Ms. Phillips, for that acknowledgement. Thank you so much. Actually, I have enjoyed my time. And so hopefully you all will see me around in some capacity. I was a volunteer before I was ever a school board member. So I'm sure you all will see me around assisting in some capacity.
Excellent.
You know, as I am needed.
Madam Chairman, this is Bob Holt. I have served with Dr. Hall Leonard for 5 years, and I can attest that she does her homework, she brings up her concerns, and she's just been an excellent board member. So Dr. Hall Leonard, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Holt. Thank you.
Awesome.
Anything else for the board? Oh, actually, yes. One more thing, just so that everyone is aware, because of course, Dr. Hall Leonard's seat is up for appointment, as is Ward 6. So just to make sure that all board members are aware in case they did not see the city council meeting Monday night, there are 2 nominees for Ward 3. However, there are no current nominees for Ward 6. So that will be advertised again for the Ward 6 position. And City Council will entertain nominations for that ward at a future meeting. So given hopefully this time that we have 2 nominees for Ward 3, we will probably have a new board member seated with us for our next meeting on August the 6th. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. So that takes us into 7.2, which is important dates to remember. Our next meeting, like I said, is on Thursday, August the 6th. That is our work session. As we discussed at our last meeting, given nothing changes with the current state of COVID, our work session will be in person at the school board office. Of course, closed session beginning at 6 and open at 7. And then that Friday, August the 7th, is our VSBA board training. I did just receive a tentative agenda, which I will forward to all board members in regards to that. VSBA is requesting that their participation be virtual for this. As if you are comfortable meeting in the board or in the conference room at the school board office, by all means, we will maintain as much social distance as required according to whatever phase we are in. If we do need to, or you feel more comfortable video conferencing in, we will make those arrangements as well. The time is a little bit different because they are video conferencing in. They are looking at starting, I believe it is at 9 o'clock. I'll forward that to everyone so that you do have that. Any questions in regards to important dates? If not, that brings us to everyone's favorite part of the
I
meeting.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion, a second, and a third. Is there any discussion?
None.
Unless anyone objects, I call this meeting adjourned.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
All right.